The open road has always promised a unique kind of freedom. It's a promise whispered on the wind, a call to leave behind the suffocating weight of rent, mortgages, and 4 permanent walls. For a growing number of Americans, life in a van, an RV, or a converted school bus is not just a vacation. It is a practical solution to an increasingly unaffordable world. This lifestyle is built on ingenuity, resourcefulness, and a quiet pact with the vast shared spaces of our country. But today, a shadow is stretching across this landscape. The horizon, once wide and welcoming, now feels like it is closing in, bringing with it a chilling uncertainty that threatens the very core of this existence. The appeal of this life is simple to understand. It offers a way to survive, and sometimes even thrive, outside the punishing cycle of debt and economic instability. Nomads are teachers, nurses, retirees, and young workers who have pieced together a life of mobility and self-reliance. They follow seasonal work, chase temperate weather, and find community in Walmart parking lots and dispersed national forest campsites. They are the modern pioneers, navigating not a wild frontier, but the economic margins of a nation in flux. Their homes are on wheels, but their roots are deep in the American tradition of seeking a better life through sheer grit and movement. However, this freedom has always been fragile, dependent on unspoken rules and the tolerance of settled society. The places where one could safely and legally park for the night have always been a patchwork quilt of gray areas. A friendly town one year could become hostile the next. But now, that quiet tension has erupted into a full-blown crisis. A new federal directive, coupled with a dramatic shift in legal precedent, is systematically dismantling the infrastructure of compassion and tolerance that made this life possible. The winds have changed, and they carry the cold, hard sound of enforcement, fines, and eviction from the public square. What was once a matter of local discretion has become a national mandate. The quiet corners where nomads could rest are now being targeted with an aggressive new zeal. The sense of community built on shared information, whispers of safe harbors and friendly towns, is now a network of warnings. The question is no longer, where can we go, but where are we still allowed to exist? For tens of thousands of Americans living on wheels, the road ahead has never looked so treacherous, and the stakes have never been higher. The very right to rest, to simply be, is now under direct assault. The earthquake that shook the nomadic world arrived on July 24, 2025. On that day, President Trump signed Executive Order 14321, titled Ending Crime and Disorder on America's Streets. The name itself sent a clear message. It framed the issue not as one of housing or economic hardship, but as one of law and order. The order explicitly rejects the Housing First model, which has long guided federal policy, by prioritizing stable shelter as the first step to helping people. Instead, it ushers in an era of enforcement, tying federal aid to a city's willingness to crack down on public camping and sleeping in vehicles. This executive action did not appear in a vacuum. It was built on the foundation of a landmark 2024 Supreme Court decision, Grants Pass versus Johnson. That ruling gave cities a powerful green light. It affirmed their authority to punish people for sleeping in public, even when no shelter beds are available. For years, the legal argument was that you couldn't punish someone for the unavoidable act of sleeping if there was nowhere else for them to go. The Supreme Court swept that protection aside. Suddenly, the simple biological need for rest became a punishable offense, and the nation's cities were empowered to act. The new executive order weaponizes this legal shift. It uses the immense power of the federal purse as leverage. Federal agencies like the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, are now directed to prioritize grants for states and cities that prove they are aggressively enforcing bans on urban camping, loitering, and sleeping in vehicles. In short, if a city wants federal money to address homelessness, it must first show it is punishing the homeless. This creates a perverse incentive to get help. You must first cause harm. The policy forces local leaders into a corner, making them choose between their budgets and their compassion. For van dwellers and RVers, this is not an abstract policy debate. It is a direct and immediate threat. The order effectively paints a target on the back of anyone whose home has wheels. It blurs the line between those choosing a nomadic lifestyle for freedom and those forced into it by economic desperation. In the eyes of this new policy, they are one and the same, a public nuisance to be managed and removed. The order encourages sweeps, ticketing, and the impoundment of vehicles, actions that can shatter a nomad's life in a single afternoon. taking not just their transportation, but their home and all their worldly possessions. The effects of this new federal pressure are not a future problem. They are happening right now, redrawing the map of America for anyone living on wheels. States are moving quickly to fall in line. In 2024, Florida, Oklahoma, and Kentucky passed their own statewide camping bans, creating vast no-go zones for nomads. These laws often designate specific government-run encampments as the only legal place for unsheltered people, concentrating them in monitored areas far from jobs and resources. The message is clear. If you don't have a permanent address, you are not welcome in our public spaces. You must go where you are told. Even in states once seen as tolerant havens, the tide is turning with brutal speed. California, Oregon, and Washington have long been destinations for RVers and van dwellers, drawn by the natural beauty and a historically more permissive culture. Now, these states are epicenters of the crackdown. Faced with the choice between losing federal funding and clearing their streets, cities from San Diego to Seattle are passing stricter ordinances. No overnight parking signs are multiplying like weeds, choking out the industrial parks, side streets, and coastal pull-offs that once offered a safe place to rest. The sweeps are becoming more frequent and more aggressive. The reality on the ground is a daily gauntlet of fear and anxiety. It means waking up to the sharp rap of a police officer's flashlight on your window at 3 a.m. It means facing crippling fines that can exceed a monthly income, simply for sleeping. It means the constant, gnawing threat of having your vehicle, your home, towed away to an impound lot, with fees accumulating faster than you could ever hope to pay. One bad night, one wrong parking choice, can spiral into total ruin. People are losing their homes, their belongings, and their connection to community in the name of public order. This enforcement surge creates a desperate nomadic migration. As one city or county becomes hostile, people are forced to move on, searching for the next shrinking pocket of tolerance. But the map is getting smaller every day. The informal networks that once shared tips on beautiful free campsites now buzz with urgent warnings about new enforcement zones and aggressive police patrols. The freedom of the road is being replaced by a state of constant displacement. Nomads are being pushed further into the shadows, into more remote and less safe areas, simply to avoid being criminalized for the act of survival. This issue isn't just for those on the road. It can even impact people helping family members on private property. We're seeing crackdowns in some states where people living in RVs on family-owned land to care for elderly parents are getting fined for parking in driveways or backyards. I had a similar situation with my own family. My cousin and his wife allowed me to park my RV on their land, but a sheriff harassed them twice, citing zoning laws. My cousin stood his ground, reminding them it was his land and threatening to sue the county if they towed my RV. The sheriff quickly backed off, but the stress and legal risk were real. This new era of hostility feels overwhelming, but the spirit of the nomadic community has always been defined by adaptation and resilience. Surrender is not in the vocabulary of people who have already chosen a life of self-sufficiency. The path forward requires a shift in strategy, from relying on informal tolerance to building concrete, defensible systems of support. The old ways of finding a spot for the night are dying. Now we must actively create our own safe harbors. The future of this lifestyle depends on our ability to organize, innovate, and secure our own land. The most powerful solution is ownership. Individuals and groups are beginning to pool their resources to buy land, creating private havens free from the reach of hostile city ordinances. Small, cooperatively owned plots in rural areas can become legal, permanent bases for a community of nomads. These home bases provide a place to rest, make repairs, and connect with others without the constant fear of a knock on the window. We are also seeing a rise in private networks that connect nomads with landowners willing to rent out a patch of their property for a small fee, creating a kind of Airbnb for safe parking. Navigating public lands also requires a more strategic approach. While many national forests and Bureau of Land Management areas still permit dispersed camping, the rules are tightening. It is more important than ever to know the specific regulations for each district, respect stay limits, and practice impeccable leave-no-trace ethics. Using apps and online forums to share up-to-date information on accessible areas is critical. We must become unimpeachable stewards of these lands, giving authorities no reason to shut down access. Our responsible behavior is our best defense. Ultimately, our greatest strength is each other. Building resilient communities is the most vital survival tool we have. This means formalizing the informal networks that have long sustained us. It means creating support funds to help people pay fines or retrieve impounded vehicles. It means showing up to city council meetings and advocating for our right to exist. The road ahead is undeniably harder, but it is not a dead end. The American nomad is a powerful symbol of ingenuity in the face of hardship. We have adapted before, and we will adapt again, finding new roads to freedom in a country that seems determined to close them. This is a personal challenge that requires real solutions. To help me and others like me, I've created a GoFundMe to raise money to get a towing vehicle to transport my beloved RV and to get a small lot of land. Please consider donating. The link is in the description.